değerli konuklar.
Distinguished participants,
Rüzgar enerjisi yol haritası konu başlıklı 5. oturumumuza hoş geldiniz.
I would like to welcome you to the fifth session on Turkish Wind Energy Roadmap. First of all, I would like to introduce myself and as well as my other colleagues as panelists. My name is Abdullah Tancan. I'm the member of the board of Energy Market Regulatory Authority, and our panelists are Mustafa Serdar Ataseven. He is from Turkish Wind Energy Association. He is the president, and Ibrahim Erden. He is a business development manager in Enerjisa, and Mr. Hakan Yıldırım. He is a group manager in Siemens. And Koray Özatay.
Aksa Karbon Elyaf Sanayi AŞ'de stratejik planlama.
He is a strategic planning manager in Aksa company. And lastly, he is Batur Yenmez. He is from Borusan as an ENBW Energy as an engineering manager. And as it was in other sessions, after following the presentations of our panelists, we will spare time for the Q&A session. And our colleagues who would like to ask questions, they may introduce themselves first, and afterwards they may address their questions to the panelists. They would like to ask their questions. First of all, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Mustafa Serdar Ataseven. Yes, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I also would like to thank to the audience who listened to us until this time. We are quite tired, and also our colleagues who made an effort for organization of this event. Perhaps we do not have the energy as we had in the morning, but still we have got some energy for wind. I will not go further into detail of the session as Turkish Wind Energy Roadmap. As the Turkish Wind Association, we have just served as an umbrella for the Wind Energy Roadmap. And at this point, our role is to cast a light on this and to function as an umbrella. And the sector actors and the representatives of the roadmap, Turkish Wind Energy Roadmap, is a product of the sector actors and representatives. And all the actors, all the stakeholders have owned this study. And in total, we have formed 7 teams. At the end of this booklet, you can see who they are. And each of these teams were identified with a leader, team leader, and these teams for 1.5 years, apart from their working time, they came together and convened together because there were some people who live in Ankara, and sometimes they organize their meetings through Skype, and they also visited some of the public institutions, and they put forward and they created this product. So for that reason, this is the event they created. So for that reason, first of all, I would like to extend my thanks to my colleagues who are involved in this work. So the role of the Turkish Wind Energy Association was to serve as an umbrella, and my colleagues found myself to be appropriate as a coordinator. And the finance, the suppliers, investors, and related to the industrialists, all the sectorial players, created this valuable work. So for that reason, they will be talking about the details. I will not go into further detail of the event, but why this event is important. None of the institutions neither on the investor side nor on the state or public side, nor the private sector producer, for example, wind turbine producers, industrialists, they couldn't have any they couldn't have any foreseeing. And here we aim for that in 2023, in order to reach this 20,000 megawatt, what should we put forward in realistic terms? In this work, we tried to put forward this, and we prepared a table, and this was previously presented to you in a summary form. If you like, you can also download the report from our website, and at the end we prepared a kind of roadmap, and here we try to identify the roles of the sector players, and we also put forward until what time they have to fulfill their responsibilities. And what it showed us that with the existing implementations, how much megawatts we can actualize, and when we actualize the recommendations in the roadmap, wind energy roadmap, we could how much we could produce, how much megawatt we could produce. So this is a project of the sector, and we have the pleasure activating and realizing this project on behalf of the Turkish Wind Association. And I would like to extend my thanks to the ones who made an effort for this. So for that reason, I would like to give the floor to the ones who really made an effort for realization of this organization. We also would like to thank to Mr. Mustafa. Now, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ibrahim Erdem, Business Development Manager from Enerjisa. So the floor is yours. First of all, I would like to extend my thanks to all the ones who decided to stay here until this time, because there is certainly a sufficient majority, and I hope that I will touch upon some of the issues that you're curious about. And as mentioned by Mr. Mustafa, we started working on this issue, on this meeting or congress organization 1.5 years ago. But actually the subject is quite comprehensive and deep, and we received many feedbacks, inputs and comments, and of course it took time to evaluate all these inputs and comments. And after we prepared this report, some additional works are carried out in leadership of TWEC, Turkish Wind Association, Turkish Wind Energy Association. As investors, related to our perspectives, so I would like to touch upon some items, some issues. So anyhow, the presentation is in the booklets. The booklets that have been distributed to you. In the existing situation, we know that there is an installed capacity of 2,100 gigabyte, and we know that there's a deficit of more than 1,800. So this means that the installed capacity annual 1,800 should be added so that we can reach 20,000 gigabyte. Is it easy? No, it's rather difficult, because in the last years, each year we could only produce 600 megawatts, but we still have to say that this is despite the problems, it should be considered as a success. In order to increase this production, there are some steps to be taken, and there are also some problems which need to be resolved. But when we look at the issue from the perspective of the investors, first of all, I have to say that we have got some problems, errors in terms of creating and preparing the projects. For example, preparing the right plans and selecting the right materials and instruments. So these are all different issues. For example, when I started 5 years ago, there was no right feasibility report, but now everyone tries to make measurement and try to prepare their feasibilities, and they try to make the technical evaluations. There is certainly a progress, but there are many steps still to be taken. And there's also an important issue our second item would be licensing procedure, as mentioned by the ministry in the morning. Actually, licensing procedure. The licensing procedure will be changed as it is expected to be. So, for example, first of all, there will be a pre-licensing, and afterwards all the requirements will be fulfilled, and afterwards the real license will be granted. So this is a procedure that has been mentioned, and this is something positive. But what we see right now is that in natural gas, coal, hydroelectric, wherever there is a procurement, wherever there is a tender, we see the prices are very normal at the very beginning, but at the end they go crazy. So in wind we have seen the same situation. In order to prevent these happenings, of course, unfortunately, this has constituted a kind of profit-making structure, and Mr. Minister is also aware of this, and many of the projects could not be realized, and many of them die away. So for that reason, this structure will be changed in time, and new mechanism will be created, and I hope that this will be successful. And the steps taken, and we see the positive steps taken forward. And besides, related to the capacity and link in the projects, in the existing projects, there cannot be an increase in the capacities. For example, in order for the existing facilities for them to establishments to increase their capacities, there is a law article in the law, but this is not applied sufficiently. Some of the companies are granted with capacity increase permission, but still there are some companies which do not receive any approval for this. In long term, there is a need for forming a long-term calendar for licensing, and until 2023. Annually 1,000 megawatt will be declared, will be announced, and we get these signals from some of the institutions. But in long term, in order to achieve this target, what kind of steps will be taken forward, and these should be put forward in an explicit way. As an investor, if these are put forward in an explicit way, these will be beneficial for the investors, and accordingly we can make our plannings. And on the other hand, the equipment suppliers and the ones thinking to produce equipment in Turkey will be aware how the licenses are allocated, and they will have such a data in hand so that they can make their plannings accordingly. So for both of the sectors, this will be beneficial. And further to this, of course, this permission procedures and planning procedures, there are some problems experienced, and these are gradually overcome, and bureaucracy undertakes what it has to do, and political will as well, and of course the expropriation could be done with the support of the Energy Market Regulatory Authority, but this is also right now the task has been undertaken by the Board of Ministers, and the required steps are being taken forward. And last year, actually, Last year, General Staff and Natural Intelligence Unit were involved in this process to have the approval. So the rules of the play should not be changed, and not having such changes would be granting trust or would be reliable for the investor. So as an investor, I have to know when I should start and when I have to accomplish it. After having started with the investment, the related parties should not ask me any additional information, like for example we have forgotten to ask permission to grant you permission from you or give permission to you. So if there is some hindrance likewise, then this would certainly hinder and block the way. But anyhow, we know that there is a sensitivity shown towards some problems, but with the emergence of the new investors coming from abroad, and in order to have well, actually, what I have to say is that we have to eliminate the obstacles which would hinder or which would prevent the great investors coming to Turkey with respect to these bureaucratic obstacles. And we know that there's certain need for incentives, but for realization and forming a liberal market and real price, we think that the real price should be formed with the subsidized gas cannot compete with wind. But this unsubsidized gas with a price structure, we know that the existing prices would be high. So for all other renewable energies, there will be a more appropriate and eligible market. So the competition between the actors of the market should be formed in a sound way. And in addition to these, there are two different points. For example, we have just mentioned about the prices. Let me talk about the operations. For example, wind energy plants could not be balanced, but now it has started to be balanced. So for our big-scaled investors, this is not a problem. It is not but the balancing unit for small investors, for the investors with wind energy projects, for example, the wind has to be estimated just before, prior to 36 hours, and hour by hour the production should be produced. This is rather hard operation. So for that reason, in daily procedure for markets will come along, but here there's a need for creating a mechanism which will involve also small-scale entrepreneurs or investors. And finally, there's also an issue related to investment, the communication investments. These also have to be planned in long term. So when capacity is announced by the Energy Market Regulatory Board, this may be announced with through EAS. So some solutions should be put forward, and also there should be a planning which would not put extra load on the shoulders of the investors. Thank you very much for your listening.
İbrahim Bey, teşekkür ederiz.
Thank you, Mr. Ibrahim Erden. Now, thirdly, we will listen to Hakan Yıldırım, Siemens Group Manager. Yes, the floor is yours. Thank you. So, as turbine suppliers, we have supported this work. So 6 turbine suppliers came together for a couple of times: Vestas, Enercon, Siemens. So, of course, under the umbrella of TWEC, Turkish Wind Association, we have interviewed together. We didn't have individual interviews, so we learned from the lessons. So what we wanted to do was about the general of this
about the general of this plan. So what is the barriers in front of 2023? So as turbine suppliers, what are the barriers for us, and how to solve these barriers and how to address these barriers? So this may be an opinion giving, or this may be a roadmap. So this is very valuable as a work. It's very valuable because I'm thinking about an English version of it. So, for example, to my top-level manager, when I put this on the table of my manager in Hamburg, for example, bureaucrat, consultant, engineer, all these opinions are together on this report. So for this reason, this is very valuable. This is why we contributed to this report. And what do we see? Of course, there are lots of barriers. We have written this in the report in detail. But of course, I will talk about 3 of them here today. So the first one is Mr. Zeki put this forward very clearly. So turbine suppliers are asked for building factories, for example. So to build a factory, there is no need for incentive. Their volume is enough, it is said. Yes, this is right. Of course, when you go to your headquarters as a foreign, for example, supplier, we would like to establish a factory, for example, in Turkey, you say. But the 2 questions come to you. Is there a volume in Turkey? So will there be sales? So not just by you. So is there a sales environment in Turkey? So the response to this question in Turkey is a little bit difficult. We cannot say we lack of volume, but we cannot say that there's a significant volume, but there is a serious potential. So you are a little bit complicated. But of course, most of the suppliers say that there is volume, there is potential, and we believe in this potential. So this is their action point. So for this reason, they are localized. For this reason, they invested. So here, I am representing the suppliers, but we are also investing because we're investing in human. Because why are we investors? Because we're thinking of establishing factories. So some of us are establishing factories. So for this reason, the environment should be attractive for us. So the first question is there a volume? And the second question is, to achieve this volume, what kind of competition agreement is there? So because if you do not have a factory, if you do not have local manufacturing, then will you be lagging behind in terms of competition? So when you have a factory, for example, can you compete in the first ranks, for example? Can you have your share from this competition? So the response to this is also difficult because there's an incentive mechanism related to local content. But this incentive mechanism, this will be valid for the power plants, which will be activated till 2015. So if you are to build a factory, for example, it cannot be operated before 2015. So as of today, if you decide to establishing a factory, then the products of this factory will not be in the scope of the incentive. So this is the situation in Turkey. So this is put forward many times today. So if there's an incentive for, if there is a target for 2023, then the incentives should involve this long term. So about incentive mechanism, this is very important. So this is very important for the suppliers. So the incentive mechanism should be a hindrance for having share from this competition. For example, when China, for example, developed this wind sector, there should be local content at the rate of 15 to 20%. So the foreign investors, the turbine, for example, manufacturers, had to take a decision to enter China or not. Because if they would enter, they would build factories. So again, Ukraine here, for example, in Ukraine there is a percentage for this. To enter the market, there should be a factory. But when you come to Turkey, whether enter or not, of course, there is incentive. Are investors taking the advantage of incentives, and in the long term, will they benefit from this, and will this create competitive advantage? Because this may bring you a disadvantage financially. For example, because this may be financial disadvantages to produce goods. compared to a company which is paying off already. So for this reason, we are, for example, comparing a tower, for example, prices. In Europe, it's not also cheap. So the local manufacturing will not bring a contribution financially to the local producers. For example, if you produce it in Denmark, when you, for example, when you put the freight or shipping, then this would be the same price in Turkey. So this may not be advantageous. But if the turbine producers say that there is a big volume, if you do not produce in Turkey, the investor will not have a good benefit. So for this reason, you will not be chosen. So then the supplier has to take a decision here. So for this reason, if this volume is attractive, then this decision may be positive. So for this reason, a supplier to the question of, for example, building a factory or not, so this calculations should be made. So this volume, of course, is not important for today, but for the coming 3-5 years, if you can put forward a volume, a perspective, because the roadmap is important from this point of view, so then the suppliers can take decisions with the headquarters. The second issue related to incentives is that system should be implementable. So as of today, investors should be taking advantage of these incentives because suppliers are asking us, investors are asking us as suppliers because they have the right to ask this. For example, in terms of we ask them to commit that they can make advantage from tower incentive. Can we commit this? No, because we cannot. Wing factory, for example, it cannot also commit something like that. So for this reason, asking for this commitment, this is the right of the investor, of course. It should go through a system, and the local manufacturers, it may manufacture turbine or tower or wing. So the investors using this, the thing that they will benefit from the incentive should be documented. And also we're trying to increase the local content because there is incentive. But also on the other hand, there are EXIM credits because there is insurance. This make the credits, loans attractive. So EXIM credits and loans are given via the product exported. So when you increase the local content, you are decreasing the EXIM loan support. So also the local banks may be attractive also, but also compared to an EXIM loan. Of course, this is a discussion for the finance people, but of course, when you increase the local content, the out of scope amount for the out of scope, there should be a system also. There should be a cost system. This is the first issue for turbine suppliers. So creating the volume and to make the volume sustainable and also attractive. The other point is that network regulations. This is a specific issue, but this is very important because every time and in every contract, this is the most time-consuming thing for the suppliers. Annex 18. There's Annex 18, and today's turbine technology is a very sophisticated technology, and lots of turbine suppliers can adapt network regulation. But in our Annex 18, as of today, there are some fields open to development and open to review. And there are some conditions that we cannot comply with. And also there are some unclear points, uncertain points. For example, when you ask, the response satisfies you, yes. So the Annex 18 should be revised. So as a turbine suppliers, we are sending our opinions to the related public authorities. And we have done this. The third issue is turbine compliance analysis. So this is related with the investment side of the issue. So the suppliers are calling investors here. So the projects should collect more information. They should work more on project and with secure calculations, and the processed information should be sent to the suppliers. So here I think this is so if we can do this 11 gigawatt in total, and if we are to do this with local setup, this is an obligation to make the supply investor confident, and also to decrease the uncertainties in bank reports, and to access the finance resources easily, and to use the resources. This is very important, because when we say 11 gigawatt in 2023, 20 gigawatts, so this is very important. So there is such a capacity now, investor, supplier, finance. So this makes 600 megawatt per year. So to make it 1,600 megawatt, so the suppliers should double their work. For example, if you have 2 microsighting engineer, you should make it 4 or 5 if we are to work on the raw data. So for this reason, on the side of investors, the homework should be done in a better way. Maybe this may be obligatory via the licensing. For example, before having this homework, for example, there may be a pre-license, licensing, or cancellation of license may take place. But in its essence, we are not, of course, getting away from work as suppliers. Of course, turbine compliance analysis will take place, of course, but in the first phases of the project, the more mature data we have, then the more secure results we have. So the bad examples will also deter the ones willing to enter into this sector. Because when the capacity is under the expectations, the investor is, of course, interviewing with everybody. So for this reason, this is diminishing and decreasing the courage. So in private investments, for example, the work should be more detailed. I think there's a need for this. And related to this, again, clearly, we are in need of support from the investors. So thank you for your attention. So we also thank you, Mr. Hakan Yıldırım, for these valuable contributions. Now, fourthly, we will continue with Koray Özatay. So Aksa Carbon Fiber Corporate, he is strategic planning manager in this company. So the floor is yours.
İyi akşamlar, teşekkür ederim.
Good evening. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for giving me the word. I would like to make a small correction and start like with Aksa Carbon Fiber Corporate has already united with a new company, a foreign company, with Dolaksa Advanced Composites. So after having made this correction, I would like to extend my thanks for the patience you have shown us by listening us here. And while we were trying to contribute to the roadmap in line with the 2023 targets, we really have high expectations, and in parallel we have high targets. What we aimed for in order to develop a side industry, perhaps while we go for 2023 target, how much local content we can use and how much parts we can ensure for this sector. We have to have 2 perspectives, as mentioned by Mr. Hakan. The major suppliers making investments should be let alone, should be put aside, and small components and raw material could be ensured, could be provided. We have to ask this question, and we have to put forward as a question, as a second perspective. Of course, incentive for actualizing a sector is very important, but this is not the only thing. If I to give an example from another sector, perhaps you have closely followed For example, when automotive sector started this work, how much incentive there existed, and the internalization regime, and small steps. So small steps were taken and becoming a great industry. This has to serve as an example, and as the wind sector, wind energy sector, we have to succeed in a shorter period of time, and we have to take care for these important these milestones, and these learnings have to be carried to the place we stand now. First of all, how we can form the roadmap and how we can reach our target by 2020. Of course, do we know what these suppliers can provide related to wind energy? For example, what are the similar technologies for wind energy, and whether these suppliers are competent, are capable of providing such equipment, and can we recognize them, and can we direct them to focus on the field we work, and can we do this? And to do this, first of all, the site industry should be dealt with, and in this respect, TWEC should perhaps develop a site industry inventory, but in order to do this, perhaps a clustering strategy should be prepared or should be put forward. In the morning, Izmir was shown as an example, but this is not enough. With some clusterings and with research and development and product development initiatives, maybe we can direct these sectors to these fields. But while forming a sector and developing a market, we should not miss the timing. While forming a sector, after 5 years, 10 years, if we produce a local turbine, I don't think that it will serve for our 2023 targets. And another issue is that local contribution share is very important, but the local contribution share should motivate the industry as well. How can we do this? Perhaps we may ensure prior procurement rights, or we may ensure them to access to cheap energy with advantages we could provide for them, and this could be done within the clusters, for example. And secondly, in addition to this second item, we have to prepare our site industry for this development. And Mr. Hakan has already mentioned that can we be competitive in this respect? And from the perspective of companies, is it possible to ensure a scale economy? Because 800 and 1,000 megawatts and 800 megawatts would be an optimistic scenarios, and would this ensure a sustainability and to our closed geographical areas? Could we serve to these closed geographical areas, like for example to Caucasia, Northern Caucasia, and to Africa, and so on and so forth? So what will the site industry be expecting? They will expect to be complying with the terminal timing and quality, and of course it would be rather romantic to meet these requirements at first instance. Of course, there will certainly be pediatric diseases, and there will be some falling down and walking, so perhaps some public supports could be provided. I also would like to thank you for your patience and listening.
Koray Bey.
So we would like to extend our thanks to Mr. Koray. And lastly, we will listen to Mr. Batur Yenmez. He is the General Engineering Manager of Borusan MBW Energy. Yes, the floor is yours. Distinguished Chair, thank you. So, thank you for your patience also. So, as the network integration group for the development of the sector related to network integration, what can we improve? So we try to develop on this. But while doing so, of course, never we said that fulfillment is hard and criticism is easy. So when improving this sector, we knew that we should respect the efforts of the authorities. So we have attached importance to this. Of course, this I may tell about some of the drawbacks in our system, but when we improve these drawbacks, the sector will be improved itself. And also, in the same way, for the improvement of the sector, what kind of barriers in terms of network integration? We have made some determination about this, and how can we overcome these barriers? So we thought about it, and first of all, as said before by the other panelists, the transmission system investments are being made by the investors. So transmission investments should be made by TWEC Transmission Corporate, but the budget approvals take time. So for this reason, in Turkey, investors make these investments themselves. They choose to do so, not to waste time. So as a result of this, there is another additional system load on the investors' transmission. So this transmission system costs, when these are added on the total investment cost of the investor, then the return of the investment is being delayed. So sometimes the investors refrain from investing. So for this reason here, TWEC should be financially and administratively strengthened. So there's a need for this budgetary approvals, and also plannings should be quicker. And if this cannot be done, so to take the transmission load from the shoulders of the investors, this transmission investments should be paid to the investor, should be paid back to the investor. So to have a secure, reliable transmission system, the wind power plants productivity is increased by this. So the coordination works are going on in this perspective, but this should be reviewed and this should be shared by the sector. So for this reason, this will be beneficial. And related to network regulation, as you all know, Econ 8 determines the technical criteria for wind power plants. So I would like to touch upon this technical criteria. As you all know, TWEC is working on this, and there are some improvements which are foreseen. So there's a draft text for this document for this. The followers may have seen this, but according to the current legislation, there were some uncertain points, but now they are clearer. But on the current legislation, we have to determine our lackings, drawbacks, and we should solve these. So related to power rates in Annex 18, there is no minimum maximum limits for power generation. Of course, we should put this forward clearly. Then there may be some problems with the implementations. Of course, in terms of normal operations, for the definitions of the codes of the turbines, there are some drawbacks. For example, to give example, for example, tension. For example, when there's a fluctuation in minus plus 10, so there should be a stable power factor for the wind turbines. And also, if the tension is over 50%, there's not a clear definition about what to do. This is being regulated in a new draft document. And also related to the power frequency curve for wind turbines, if there is a 250 hertz of frequency, then the wind turbines will be inactive, it is said. But there is not a clear definition in terms of this in the definitions again. And again, in terms of reactive power support for wind turbines, when we look at the graphs, when the support should be given, in which types of tension. So this is not definite again. So the sector understanding is that this reactive support should be given at the 100% tension. So here, of course, this should be put on the paper clearly. So the regulation should define this clearly. And again, so in terms of auditing, inspecting compliance to Annex 18, there's nothing certain. Of course, there will be controls. Of course, the controls will be fruitful for the reliability of our network. But of course, if there will be an additional load on the sector, so if rare tests are done, then this will make us our work difficult. So, for example, easy implementable energy analyzers, for example, installation and their follow-up, for example, and also there may be independent auditors and the related analysis can be done by them, and also their reports may be acceptable. So this would be appropriate. And also in terms of reactive power control, the wind power plants, there are some definitions related to wind power plants. So the compliance to the regulation is to be controlled also. So here, of course, this should also be defined when these tests take place, because in terms of activating, operating the power plants, of course, as you know, in the timing, everything is consecutive, and when there are tests about reactive power control in the middle, so there will be a workload. So after ministry accepts, there may be a time given to the investors, so then they can be accomplished. And also there are some uncertainties for the investors. So this, of course, hindered the work of the investors. Of course, these uncertainties are solved by the applications, but of course, if we have clear definitions in our regulation, this will be more fruitful. For example, to give an example, connection agreement and system use agreements we have, and related to connection agreement, we know the process. You apply, and then I don't want to recall the process here, but in terms of this connection agreement, by applying this, and when we look at the time between applying and signing, so this may be very long. So for this reason, investment plans of the investors may be delayed for this reason. And also in the regulations, system usage agreements would be carried out during connection agreements, it says, but this is not done so. So after the investment is accomplished, if this takes place, so after the transmission line is over, and also you have to work for the system usage agreement. But of course, if the transmission system is ready, but sometimes when there's no system usage agreement, then they cannot use the system. So connection agreement and system usage agreements can be applied together, and the production facility can be accomplished, and then the agreement can be revised. So both sides may be happy, and we will not waste time. And about basin transformers, of course there are some reimbursements, but there is an investment load on the investors. And in terms of contribution agreements, there are some basin transformer centers. So the ones qualify for the tenders, because the space of the wind turbines are not clear. This cannot be also clear. So for this reason, the investors are foreseeing something to be ready for WPP contribution agreement. So in the coming period, the voltage levels, and also for the transformer centers, the regulation can involve something about all these, because we all know that there are some implementations, but in these implementations there may be some drawbacks. So when there are such drawbacks or handicaps, because investors should do this together, so no investor should be victimized here, and the investments should be accomplished in a sound way, healthy way. And as we said before, with transmission system investments, there is a fiber optic OPG communication system established by the investors. As the wind, as we all know, wind investors, these are built on mountains and very remote locations. So of course we will bring transmission lines here to have energy. But of course we do this, and also then because we need high-speed communication system, and again to our transformer center, we are establishing communication system in our transformer centers. Of course, in high voltage lines, we want to use these fiber optic lines for this reason. But these fiber optic lines, please, we can have this 16 core. We can rent these lines also. We do not have any problems, because related to communication system, we also give a rent payment to the authorities for this reason. But we are wasting time for these communication lines. We are wasting money for these communication lines, and let's. I think this is unnecessary. We can use our energy for something more fruitful. And also, related to this, we are also contacting related TWEC units, and we have learned that the related regulations should be revised for this reason. But if the related authorities, if the related officials do this work, and if the companies which lack of communication lines can rent these lines, then they will get rid of building these communication lines themselves too. So TWEC should also do something. We decided in terms of network integration group, and we requested Mustafa Bey that related to network integration and related to other issues also, Turkish Wind Association should give trainings, should have some raising awareness activities, so that the investors will be more aware. And in terms of system integration, network integration, there won't be any wrongdoings. And also we wanted to do better works, and Mustafa Bey respected this, and he involved us in the mandate of TÜREP, Turkish Wind Association, and also Wind Energy Association. And if you see their names, you can see our names on the lists, and also there are some colleagues which we cannot see the names in these lists. So thank you for your attention. We would like to extend our thanks to Mr. Batur and to all other panelists. Related to their own field, they put forward some solutions and problems for the solutions for these problems. And in terms of connecting to this distribution network and also communication lines, the investors are victimized. Yes, I know, I agree with this. And in terms of this, EMRA, Energy Market Regulatory Authority, will be amending the 38th article of license regulation. Maybe you may have followed this. This is open to sector opinion, and now we have received the opinions, and the related experts are compiling this for the board to submit it to the board. So the investors' victimization will be minimized by these amendments. So we are aiming at finding such a solution. And also, related to the other issue also, which Mr. Ibrahim told about, especially in terms of the ones completed investments and to use the same line, so to increase the capacity in the same field space. So if TEH gives positive opinion in terms of capacity, then there will be no problem in terms of increasing the capacity. So in terms of national capacity and also in terms of the transformer capacity to be connected to, if there's a limitation regarding this, there may be some problems. But of course, after 2013, there will be some additional capacities to be announced. So this will a little bit, I think, be overcome. So I wanted to clarify this point here because I think this will be fruitful for you. Then now, if you have any questions, we can proceed with the Q&A session. Yes.
Evet, ben artık bu adet haline geldi bugün için.
I think this has already become a tradition in today's session, but I believe that this is very important, and I would like to draw your attention to this. And I also would like to address my question to Mr. Ibrahim, and we would like to thank for your work, and we are assured that this is a great job. We have not seen it yet, but we are assured that this is a great work. I wonder whether this is contained in this. We are, as the ones producing electricity, generated electricity from wind, we sell this to wholesalers. So this green electricity is sold to the end users, and the end users have become quite knowledgeable and aware, and they want to consume green energy. And in the, for example, advertisements, we watch these advertisements being made, and in the markets, in the automobiles, they hang signs which say that these facilities electricity is generated from green energy. So the wholesaler company which purchases electricity from us while it makes commerce or trade with this, I wonder the certificate they show that they give this energy to the related parties from green energy, and how should we rely on them? How should we believe in them? They might have produced or generated this energy from coal or from other resources. So I wonder whether there are any works or studies you have carried out that this certificate is reliable and they can prove that this is produced from green energy, and to which extent you share with this public. So we ask with Mr. Zeki, and we think that Mr. Mustafa is quite knowledgeable about this. So we ask about this, and we took into consideration the views. Of course, this is very important, and we have to talk about the green certificate in Europe. So, in companies' hands, to which extent they should consider the energy as green energy, derived from or generated from wind or water, so on and so forth. So, of course, we certainly have to care for these issues, that they should be these certificates should be reliable. And of course, we know that in perception of the public, the perception of the public of green energy is very important, and we have to encourage this certificate concept in the public. So for that reason, we believe and we agree with you that this has to be reliable, and this should be proved that this energy is coming from green energy. Ercüment Özdemirci, TEİAŞ, APA2 department. We have carried out our corporate or cooperations with your department. I would like to say that as regards the transmission lines cost, of course, this is an important issue, a factor for the investor, but we also have to state that many of the investors know that in the European countries, access to the system and costs are met by the investors, and there's no reimbursement, even though this is tackled to be in Turkey as to be reimbursement in 10 years. This when there is an application to TEİAŞ, first of all, the TEİAŞ wants to take the opinion of the companies, and since we're affiliated to public procurement authority, we have to care for the risk, and if the companies take the risk for becoming the delayed process or for being late, then the enacting of the power plant and the production of the energy, as you know, are tackled by the TEİAŞ. And in the Annex 18, you have just mentioned that there have been some amendments, and there are some nuisance, actually, differences, small differences, sorry. And as mentioned, this issue can be, or this topic can be differently commented by other people, interpreted by people. So we will this different interpretation will be eliminated. And also, as regards the connections, is rather the connection agreements. As regards the connection agreements and to have an usage agreement, there should be certain recycling. So in terms of system operator, there might be some problems. For example, for a power plant which has got 3 lines, when one line is constructed, it may be said that one may come, let me just use it so I have the license. And just as regards nature, this has to be likewise. So the later usage agreement, if they make the application on time, then there would not be any risk. So in terms of planning, as mentioned, by 2023, if 20,000 megawatt power is to be provided by 2023, then this is dependent on the views of the TEİAŞ. So TEİAŞ transmission system in this context, within this context, 10-year plannings are made, and in 13 years of time, we are planning to present to the public. So in this respect, investors as well, in front of themselves, they will be able to see clear cost values in front of them. Thank you very much.
Herkese iyi akşamlar. Kayalar
Kayalar firm company related to energy market. Certainly we have good meetings on this energy market, but we have to talk about the world conjuncture, and we also think that our share is quite high in terms of competition on the world in terms of energy. For example, China right now has got a wind energy 750,000 megawatt, and until 2015 they will accomplish this amount, and Germany Germany obtains its 14% of its energy from wind energy, and in Izmir it has been mentioned that there is clustering in Izmir. I also investigated this as well, researched this, and these clustering works are rather superficial, and these I think that these are in a way that they don't have a future. They are such investments. So and I think that Istanbul is a region of industry. So for that reason, all the products related with wind energy in a detailed way, and by identifying the products to be created, these products may be identified within involvement of the ministry, and I think these products should be planned and should be created in such a way that where in production process and in planning process there will be also the SMEs will be involved. So this is very important. So I address my question to Mr. Ahmed, especially for the medium-sized entrepreneurs or enterprises. For example, even my company is involved in this process, and I carry out a research, and we're just carrying out a wind turbine work, and we will be producing a part, so we will be exporting to the abroad as well. So such small, medium-sized enterprises should be encouraged. For example, why should we have it as 2,000 megawatt? When we look at energy in Turkey, we see that certainly there's a deficit for future. So for that reason, do you think that there could be any kind of study which could be recommended by the ministry? Could the ministry recommend any kind of product to be produced by the medium-sized enterprises? If I explained wrong, I'm sorry for this, but I wanted to say that the companies could come together in Izmir, and they make cluster, and this is what we expect actually, that we desire. So we wish the component producers to come together and cooperate with each other, and here also to provide the state to provide support. So for laborship, for energy, there could be some additional incentives by the state, and accordingly the component for wind energy could be encouraged. The production of these parts could be encouraged by the medium-sized enterprises. And secondly, the side industry is something, for example, there are many companies which are aware that they can do many things, but the turbine producers are not aware what they can obtain from these producers. So if there could be any kind of side industry inventory, then the investors certainly would be able to see who is doing what and who is producing what, and small and medium-sized enterprises would do what kind of work. This will be possible to see. And I also would like to add something here, because for example, the side industry and major industry are hand in hand. For example, in order to produce a steel stake, for example, or pile, there should be a high volume. So, for example, Anchorage could not be produced in Turkey, and every time 10 or 15,000 of parts could be produced. So I'm just coming back to the same point. The development of side industry could be by involvement of the major industry. So this could be done with an central administration. Maybe this could have been done in the Eastern Bloc countries previously easier, but if we have a major industry, then this certainly would supply the side industry as well. What I would like to ask is that in liberal economy, the opportunities and the ones involved in trade are chasing them. But we have to touch upon an incentive in renewable energy sector, especially as regards the investments for equipment. If these have been among the other investments, then the chamber of the Chambers Union or TWEC, with TWEC, some inventory studies could be carried out, and the companies producing parts and components could be made aware, and they could be encouraged to cluster. So I think that these are this is a kind of process which follows the other. So the state should adjust and should prepare the regulation accordingly, and accordingly the training should be provided. Otherwise, the other things are rather enforcement. So let us give, for example, incentives to the ones who are producing the gears, for example. So for each gearbox, for example, if they produce gearbox, these companies would be producing gearbox, but we have to complete the chain, and the strategy has to be identified, and the implementation steps should be identified, and accordingly the sector has to be made aware.
Başka bir soru galiba yok.
I think there is no other question. Yes, sorry.
Roberto Schiro from Training Center for Renewable Energy in Germany. I would like to ask Hakan Bey.
Almanya'da. Ben Hakan Bey'e şunu sormak istiyorum. Bizler 20.000 megawatttan bahsediyoruz. Gelecek yıllar için, Türkiye için ve Türkiye türbin geliştirmekten bahsediyoruz. Ancak teknisyenler açısından durum nedir? İşçiler açısından, çalışanlar açısından, bu türbinlerle ilgili çalışacak teknisyenler açısından durum nedir? Ve aynı zamanda şu da düşünülebilir mi? Yani bir eğitim merkezi burada da olabilir mi? Rüzgar türbin teknisyenleri için bir eğitim merkezi olabilir mi? Özellikle Avrupa standartlarında olabilir bu, ya da daha Alman standartlarında olabilir. Çünkü bu çok önemli bir konu. Ve çünkü kaliteli olması bunun çok önemli ve de bakım hizmetlerinin kaliteli olması özellikle bu tür makineler için, rüzgar türbinleri için çok önemli ve aynı zamanda işçilerin güvenliği çok önemli ve de Türk iş gücüne bunun katkı yapması çok önemli ve şu anlamda ulusal rüzgar türbinleri eğitim merkezi olması Türkiye'de aynı zamanda sizin tasarruf etmenizi de sağlayacaktır. Türbin üreticilerinin de, imalatçılarının da tasarruf etmesini sağlayacaktır diye düşünüyorum. Nedir bu konudaki görüşleriniz?
Çok teşekkür ederim. Çok güzel bir soru. Bu haftanın başında
Indeed. So I was in Hamburg in the start of this week, so in our headquarters, and we thought about how can we save more and how can we increase the added value. So our speech was very close to what you asked now. So this is a very valid question, an important question. So in the beginning of my speech, we are named as suppliers, but we are also investors, I said, because we're investing in human. So what you're talking about, this scope technicians and also installation technicians, transmission, activation technicians, project managers, these are all included in this group, and providing all these in Turkey is very important from two perspectives: creating labor force, and the second one is the transfer of know-how. So of course training is very important. As Siemens, I am representing the turbine suppliers here on this seat, but I can do this say this comfortably that now we are giving trainings abroad So to our technicians for installation or the service technicians, maintenance technicians, for example, we are providing trainings abroad. But in the coming period, in the following period, these trainings are planned to be given in Turkey, organized in Turkey. But of course, this is again related with that magic word, volume. So the more project we have, the more power plant we have, the more customers we have, the more technicians or we have to raise, and the more competitive we have to be as Siemens, for example, in terms of installation. So 60% is being carried out by the certified, level 7 certified technicians, Turkish technicians, and this is very important. We do think so. Thank you for the question. Okay, this was, I think, a fruitful session, and Mr. Mustafa Serdar wants to make a contribution. Distinguished Chair, I would like to make a small contribution. Really, this work we have put forward is the first of its kind in Turkey. So of course there will be some drawbacks, bottlenecks in this. Of course, in the timing it will be outdated, of course. But this study will be revised in certain periods. So we're thinking about revising it. So in that process, we will be in need of feedbacks from all the sector stakeholders. So we're in need of contributions of the stakeholders, sector stakeholders. So for this reason, we are waiting for these works from you. Related to clustering, I would like to make a contribution, especially Prime Minister Investment Agency from time to time demands from us, for example, in terms of wing manufacturing, for example, companies, the list of companies which can produce wing or materials for wing is wanted for us, for example. For example, a foreign company is, for example, applying the investment agency and they demand something like this. So I have taken my notes like this as TWEC, as Turkish Wind Energy, TWEC, as the Turkish Wind Energy Association. Our next target will be this one. And related to turbine manufacturing, the suppliers will be categorized, classified, and this will be announced as a list on the website of Turkish Wind Energy Association. And everything we do is transparent. So for this reason, we may contribute to the sector from this perspective also. One more question. Mehmet Ali Karanfil, Zonguldak, Black Sea, Karadeniz, Ereğli. I'm electrical engineer. So for 40 years I am trying to work. So I have taken place in different works, Afşin Elbistan Thermic Power Plant, and I took place in large projects, and wind power plant is a large-scale project, and it's a heavy industry investment. So in our region, Karabük iron and steels, Ereğli iron and steel. So there's heavy industry in our region. So 600,000 people are working in the sector. So for this reason, these people, for example, established Iskenderun iron, steel, and all the, for example, railway bridges are being projected and installed by this region. So for this reason, in terms of steel tower investment per year, minimum we can produce 6,000 tons of steel tower production. We have this capacity, vacant capacity. So immediately we can activate this. So we may invest in steel tower manufacturing, and also in terms of heavy industry investment, we have very knowledgeable people, thousands of people, and they are unemployed at this moment, and unemployment is very high in our region. So for this reason, in terms of developing the technology, we can contribute as a region. I am voluntary for Karabük and Ereğli Zonguldak region. So as a technology center, you can use our region, and also investments can easily be adapted. Thank you.
Son olsun.
One another question. This should be the last one because there is a very there is a delay in the program. Gün Işık Energy General Coordinator Raşit Gürsoy. So I would like to say something also related to this. In terms of turbines, I told this to Mr. Nihat also. Again, I would like to say that 30 years, we have 30 years machine factories. In Karabük, there is 25,000 steel construction capacity. And there are 60,000 tons of new steel construction factory. So we have 100,000 tons of steel capacity and 50,000 tons of pig capacity, and we have 10,000 tons of metal capacity. So also we can manufacture the machines necessary. So in 1970s, I represented iron and steel sector, and I also took part in the meetings organized by the government. And at that time there were some researches for cooperation, but now this should be sought for again. And these other turbines, and also related to wind turbines, wind machine materials, spare parts can be manufactured with some additions, because we have labor force, necessary labor force. So I wanted to make this contribution. So thank you for your contributions, and thank you for your patience, attention,
Teşekkür ediyorum ve hayırlı akşamlar.
and I wish you a good evening.